This story was sent to us by a real listener. It happened somewhere in East Asia, maybe in China, Japan, Vietnam, or Korea. They remember it clearly, and after you hear it, you will too. Welcome to Real VNightmare, where real people share the moments they'll never forget. This story was submitted to our channel by the John Eric who experienced it. From the outside, the house looks like any other along Long Yuan Avenue, 4 stories tall. Pale brick facade, quiet courtyard. But standing at its gate, Zhao Eric can already feel the weight of something else. The construction file in his hand says renovation only. No mention of previous deaths. No red flags in city records. Just a line item, clean basement, reinforced foundation. Still, the moment he unlocks the rusted gate, the wind dies. As if the house has sucked the sound from the street. He steps inside. The living room is musty, but intact. The upstairs balconies seem untouched by time. But it's the basement that draws his focus. A steep concrete stairwell leads down to a metal door. He hesitates before opening it. There's no reason to, he's walked into countless cellars before. But this one feels like a trap that's been waiting open. He grips the railing and descends. The first thing that hits him is the smell. Not mold, not dust. Incense. Thick, burned-out, half-sour incense, the kind that clings to the air after a funeral. The air is dense with it, even though no burners are in sight. In the center of the basement ceiling hangs a cracked bagua mirror, its glass fractured down the middle. In each of the 4 corners, concrete columns rise from the floor wrapped in red thread, knotted tightly. Eric's breath catches. These aren't construction supports. They're markers, spiritual pins meant for sealing something in place. A protective warding he realizes the kind known in old tradition as zhenya. Zhenya is a ritual or method used to spiritually suppress or seal off harmful forces, believed to prevent them from spreading or returning. Whoever did this, he thinks wasn't trying to protect the house. They were trying to trap something. Eric pulls out his phone to take pictures. The camera app glitches, fuzzes, distorts. He takes one photo anyway, blurry, useless. Then his flashlight flickers, just for a second. Something moves in the corner of his vision by the narrow ventilation window. A shadow. Gone before he can focus. He swallows hard and climbs back up to the 1st floor. He tells himself it's nothing. He comes back with a team the next morning. Before work begins, he lights 3 sticks of incense out of respect, out of habit, and places them in a ceramic bowl on the front steps. He whispers the usual words to the air. When he opens his eyes, the incense bursts into flame. Not a small flare. An actual whoosh of fire, hot and sudden. Startled, Eric leaps back. At that exact moment, his phone rings. It's his mother. "Where are you right now?" she asks. Her voice is tight, urgent. At the sight, Eric says, glancing at the burning incense, "Why, I just lit our family altar." The incense snapped in half, and the prayer beads exploded. "I've never seen anything like it." He tells her everything's fine and hangs up. But his hands are shaking. Work begins. By noon, scaffolding in the stairwell collapses, nearly injuring one of the workers. A second worker gets an electric shock from an exposed wire, though the line had already been turned off. A third loses grip on a sledgehammer, sending it flying across the room. It crashes through a mirror. By evening, a man named Lee Thomas slips, twisting his ankle while stepping into the basement. All accidents, but all unusual. At dinner, Kevin, the site supervisor, pulls Eric aside. "Maybe we bless the place," Kevin says, half joking. Eric doesn't laugh. "I think someone already did, a long time ago." He tells Kevin about the bagua mirror, the red thread, the scent of incense. Kevin's expression changes. You mean someone tried a real ceiling? Eric nods. Kevin exhales. Then we're either disturbing something that should stay quiet, or we're unlocking something that was dying to get out. They agree to pause basement demolition until they can get a second opinion. That night, Eric lies in bed, unable to sleep. The image of the cracked mirror floats in his mind. And that smell, the kind of scent that sticks to the back of your throat, lingering like regret. Around 3:00 a.m., he jolts awake, gasping for breath. A dream. He was at the base of the stairs again, looking into the darkness. And someone, or something, was looking back. The next morning, Zhao Eric wakes up feeling like his lungs were pressed by stone. He can't shake the remnants of the dream, the eyes in the darkness, the cold stare reaching up from the basement. He brushes it off and returns to the site. But something about the house feels worse than yesterday. The sunlight barely touches its windows, and the air inside is too still, too stale. By mid-morning, another incident occurs. Lee Thomas, still limping from his twisted ankle, tries to guide wiring through the stairwell but suddenly freezes. He claims something touched his shoulder-cold fingers that tightened for a moment and vanished. Eric inspects the spot himself. No one was near him. There's no draft, no open vents. Later, as the team moves heavy materials across the second floor, one of the support bars collapses. It doesn't fall. It folds, like it was bent from the inside. A load of rebar slides down, hitting a worker on the leg. Nothing fatal, but it draws blood. Zhao Eric pulls the crew aside. We stop for today. Kevin agrees. Even the most skeptical workers are starting to look around nervously, avoiding the basement steps. One man mutters, "This place is wrong, like it doesn't want us here." That evening, Eric returns home with a weight on his chest. His mother is waiting for him, already holding a small bowl of salt and rice. "You brought something back," she says without turning. "Stand in the doorway." She walks around him 3 times, murmuring softly, sprinkles the mixture onto his shoulders, then burns 3 slips of yellow paper. Eric watches the ashes twist in the air like smoke from an old story. "I dreamt of your father last night," she tells him. "He was standing outside the house. He didn't come in, just stood there, watching." Eric doesn't know what to say. She lowers her voice. "Call your brother, now." Zhao Alan, Eric's elder brother, is a monk now residing at Baoji Pagoda. He answers immediately. His tone is calm but urgent. "I already know," Alan says. "I was in meditation when the flame turned blue. That only happens when something tries to break into our realm." Eric tells him everything. Alan doesn't pause. "You must leave the house, immediately. There's more than one spirit there." Eric hesitates. "We've already started work." "The landlord expects." "The landlord doesn't matter." Alan cuts in. "You were chosen. You were the one who entered first. You're the one it sees." Those words land hard. That night, as Eric lies awake, trying to make sense of it all, he hears a knock. Not at the door, at his window. He lives on the 3rd floor. Slowly, he turns toward the sound. Another knock. Faint. Deliberate. He peeks through the blinds. There's no one there. Just a small red string dangling from the edge of the window latch, fluttering in windless air. The next morning, Kevin calls him in a panic. Young David's acting strange. David, one of the porters hired to stay overnight, had reportedly screamed in the middle of the night, then collapsed. When Kevin arrived at the house early this morning, he found David pacing back and forth, mumbling to himself. He said someone climbed into his bed, that they hummed to him. Eric arrives quickly. David looks pale, drained. He doesn't recognize Eric at first. "You left me there," David mutters. "She told me you wouldn't come back." "Who?" Eric asks. The grandmother, David says, eyes unfocused. She's still down there, still hungry. Eric's skin prickles. Just then, the neighbor, an elderly woman who lives across the street, appears at the gate. She doesn't say hello, doesn't ask permission. She just stares at Eric and says, "You people didn't listen." Eric steps forward. "Ma'am, you said something before, that there was a woman who used to live here." She nods. An old mother. Her children abandoned her. She had 5 sons. Only one came back, and not to care for her. He built this house over the old one. Put her in the basement. Said it was temporary. But she never came back up. Kevin appears beside Eric, face pale. "She died down there." Slowly, the woman replies. And she wasn't alone. Her grandson came to visit. He died too. Fell down the stairs while running for help. Eric feels sick. "They were never buried properly, were they?" The woman shakes her head. "They were sealed." The words echo in his mind. Sealed. Zenya. That night, Eric dreams again. He's back in the basement, but this time the child is standing in the corner, and the old woman is holding the cracked bagua mirror in her hands, the broken glass dripping with something dark. She turns slowly and whispers, "You open the door." Eric wakes drenched in sweat, the dream clinging to his skin like wet cloth. The woman's voice still rings in his ears. "You open the door." He doesn't wait for morning. He throws on a jacket and drives through the city streets, heading straight for Baoji Pagoda. When he arrives, it's not yet 5 a.m. But his brother Zhao Alan is already awake, as if expecting him. Without words, Alan leads him into the rear shrine hall, where incense is already burning, and a ring of prayer. Beads rests on the floor, cracked in 3 places. Eric looks at them, then at his brother. Alan meets his gaze. "I tried to call the spirit to speak," and Eric asks. It refused. It didn't just resist, it broke the circle. She's angry and powerful. They sit down cross-legged in silence. Alan pours tea. Then he says, "Tell me everything." No details left out. Eric does. He speaks of the strange incense in the basement, the red-threaded rebar stakes, the cracked bagua mirror, the worker injuries, the dreams, the neighbor's account of the grandmother and the boy. When he finishes, the silence is thick. Alan finally says, "You weren't just the first to enter. You're the only one it hasn't rejected." Eric's brow furrows. Rejected, she's hurting, but her pain is selective. She punished the others, injured them, possessed them. But you she hasn't harmed, not directly. "She pushed me," Eric argues. "Down the stairs, I saw her." Alan nods. "Yes. But she hasn't finished with you yet." Later that morning, they visit the site together. Kevin joins them, and so does a monk. Alan brings from Longmen County. Chen Victor, calm, silent, eyes sharp as polished obsidian. As they walk toward the basement, the air thickens. Not colder, just heavier. Victor doesn't speak. He walks the perimeter 3 times, places his palm against the entrance wall, then closes his eyes. There is no peace here, he says, and no forgiveness. He steps into the basement and halts. "You must all stay above," he instructs. Eric doesn't argue. He stands at the top of the stairs, watching Victor disappear into the gloom. The basement lights flicker. They wait. 10 minutes pass, then 20. Finally, Victor returns. He places something on the floor between them, an old porcelain rice bowl, cracked but unbroken. It's filled with dust, and a small child's tooth rests on top. Eric stares at it. "Where did you find that?" "Inside the wall," Victor says. "Behind a false panel. Next to a child's sandal." Kevin whispers. "That's seriously creepy," Victor continues. "This was no ordinary death." She wasn't just abandoned, she was punished, left to die slowly. Her grandson stayed with her. But when he tried to leave, tried to escape, he was stopped. Possibly by someone else. Possibly by the spirit herself. I don't know. Eric leans back against the wall, trying to process it all. Victor kneels and draws a circle with chalk. Then he marks 8 cardinal points with incense sticks. We will call her. Kevin takes a step back. Are you sure that's wise? She already knows we're here, Victor replies. If we wait, she will come on her terms. Zhao Allen joins in the chant. Together the monks begin the ritual. The incense lights itself, no matches, no flame. The air grows hot. Eric watches as the chalk circle begins to darken, bleeding like wet ink. Then a voice speaks not aloud, but inside their heads. You heard me, it says. Eric gasps. Victor doesn't react. We are listening. You opened the door, she hisses. Allen replies softly, because you knocked. The incense flares again. Shadows creep toward the center of the circle. A shape takes form, a hunched figure, draped in tattered cloth, holding a child by the wrist. The child looks down. The woman looks through them. Eric feels his throat tighten. Why us? The spirit's voice rasps. Because the others forgot. But you see. Kevin steps back. Is it really her? Victor nods. And the boy too, bound by sorrow. Bound by silence. Allen steps forward. Let us help you go. No, she snarls. Not until he pays. Not until my name is remembered. Not until the house is mine again. Eric's breath catches. Who do you mean, the landlord? She doesn't answer. She just lifts the child's hand. It's holding a cracked piece of paper, a property deed. The signature on it is blurred, faded, but visible. It's the same name on the renovation contract Eric received on day 1, Luo Stephen. The name on the deed strikes like a blow. Luo Stephen. Eric exhales sharply. The landlord forged the deed, Zhao Allen answers, or coerced it. Either way, it wasn't given freely. Victor lifts the fragile paper from the apparition's hand. The moment it leaves the child's grasp, the boy fades slightly, as if untethered. The grandmother's grip tightens around his wrist, her translucent fingers curling like claws. She's holding him here, Allen whispers. Not just out of grief. Out of fear that letting go will mean losing him all over again. Victor addresses her directly, voice soft but firm. Your suffering is understood. Your story will be told. But holding him here traps you both. The grandmother's shadow twitches. Everyone else forgot me, she rasps. Even in death. Kevin mutters under his breath. She doesn't want revenge. She wants remembrance. Eric speaks carefully. Then we will remember you. We will give you your name again. But you must release him. Let him go with light, not pain. For a long moment, no one breathes. Then, for the first time, the child lifts his head. His eyes meet Eric's. He doesn't speak, but his lips move. Home. Suddenly, the incense sticks extinguish all at once. The circle vanishes, and both spirits are gone. Not violently, not with screams, just gone. Silence hangs over the basement. Victor rises. We've paused the cycle, but not ended it. Allen says the binding must still be undone. The curse was reinforced by an object, something buried or hidden. We must find it. Eric recalls the odd pressure behind one of the walls. There's a hollow space behind the north support beam. They start clearing debris. Behind a layer of old plaster, they find it a sealed wooden box bound in red thread, coated with layers of dust. Eric carefully slices through the thread with a box cutter. The thread snaps like a violin string under pressure. Inside the box, a bundle of gray hair, a child's red shoe, and a dried-up ceremonial slip covered in symbols, Victor recoils. They made her into a warding token. Whoever did this didn't just seal her, they used her pain as a barrier to claim the property. Spiritually, Eric whispers, they cursed her soul to protect their wealth. Alan closes his eyes. That's why she could never leave. Her spirit was woven into the walls. They bring the items to the main floor and set up a temporary altar. Alan places a lotus-shaped candle at the center, then begins chanting quietly. Victor adds sticks of purified incense. Kevin brings a cup of fresh water. Together, they burn the hair and the shoe, letting the smoke rise gently through the rafters. Eric places the deed into the flame last. As it curls and blackens, the house groans not metaphorically. The beams creak. A low hum resonates through the walls like a long-held breath being exhaled. Then, quiet. Truly quiet. Not oppressive, not tense, just still. Victor speaks first. It's done. Her anchor is broken. Alan nods. Now we wait. If the house remains calm for the next 3 nights, the cleansing will be complete. They leave incense burning in every room. Small offerings of fruit and water rest on windowsills. A final slip of prayer parchment is pressed above the front door. As they exit, Eric pauses at the gate. The neighbor, silent until now, steps out from her yard. She walks over slowly and places something into Eric's hand. It's a small packet of dried herbs. Mugwort, camphor, star, anise. For protection, she says. Eric bows deeply. Thank you. For watching. For warning. I've seen many people come and go from that house, she replies. You were the only one who came back with offerings. That night, Eric returns home and lays the packet beside his broken silver amulet. He dreams again, but it's different now. In the dream, he's standing in the basement, but it's clean, bright. The cracked mirror is gone. The red thread is gone. And standing at the far end is the child holding the grandmother's hand. She isn't angry anymore. She isn't whispering. She simply nods at him once, and then turns to leave. The next day begins with rain, steady, soft, washing the dust from rooftops and pooling in the edges of sidewalks. Eric arrives at the site early. The front gate groans open like it always does, but the house behind it no longer feels like it's watching. The silence inside is neutral now. Blank, as if something has departed, leaving only walls and concrete behind. Kevin is already there, checking the scaffolding. A few workers from the old team have returned cautiously, though they stay clear of the basement. No one jokes, no one plays music. They work like people treading on sacred ground. Zhao Allen arrives mid-morning with a stack of yellow talisman slips and a small clay urn. He walks the entire perimeter, pressing a slip to each major doorway and muttering a low chant under his breath. He doesn't speak to anyone while he works. His presence itself is a ritual. Victor does not come. He has returned to Tiangu Pagoda to perform a cleansing on his own body, something necessary after. Exposure to the binding energy of the cursed box. Before leaving, he sent a final instruction. Burn the last items on the 3rd night, and seal the ashes at the altar. Only then is it complete. Eric follows every word. That evening, the final ceremony begins. The crew leaves. Only Eric, Kevin, and Alan remain inside. They gather in the main room. Alan lights a row of lotus candles, placing them in a perfect square. In the center, they place the remains of the binding box, the scorched wood. The last of the red thread, a single petal from the altar flower. The flames catch easily. The air does not shift, they wait. At midnight, the candles burn low, and Alan sprinkles a pinch of powdered sandalwood into the flame. The scent rises gently, and a sudden gust of wind pushes open the window. Eric turns to close it, but stops. Outside in the yard, he sees a child standing under the tree. The same boy, not bruised, not afraid, just watching. Kevin whispers, "You see him too. Alan doesn't move. Say nothing, just let it pass." The boy stands quietly for a moment. Then he turns, takes a few steps, and vanishes behind the trunk like walking into mist. Eric closes the window gently. That was the farewell, Alan says. The next morning, the landlord returns, Luo Stephen. He arrives with a contractor from another firm, apparently intending to assess progress and negotiate compensation for the delays. But when he steps through the front gate, his foot twists suddenly, and he stumbles into the mud. His suit is soaked. He curses, brushing dirt from his knees. Inside the house, he sneers. "What's all this incense chalk? You turned my property into a temple." Kevin doesn't answer. Eric simply stares at him. "Did you know what you were doing when you signed that deed?" Stephen laughs. "I signed a lot of papers. Your job was to build, not investigate." Alan steps forward. "Your mother remembered everything. So did your nephew." For the first time, Stephen's expression shifts. He opens his mouth to reply, then doesn't. He turns sharply and leaves the house without another word. As the door closes behind him, one of the altar candles snuffs out. Kevin mutters, "He's going to carry it, whether he knows it or not." Alan nods. He broke the bond, and no ritual undoes that. Later that week, Eric visits Baoji Pagoda. He kneels before the main altar and lights a single cone of incense. As the smoke curls upward, he closes his eyes and thinks not of fear, but of gratitude. For having seen, for having survived. He doesn't ask for protection this time. He only whispers, "Thank you for letting go." In the following days, work at the house resumes cautiously. More crew members return. The structure is stabilized. Reinforcements go in. Paint begins to cover the old gray walls. The Bagua mirror is replaced with a new one, whole, unbroken, and aligned properly to the door. The new tenant is a young teacher with a quiet voice and a cat. She never reports anything strange, no dreams, no knocks, no humming lullabies in the dark. Eric drives by once, many weeks later, and sees her watering a small plant by the front gate. The cat watches him from the windowsill, tail swishing lazily. He doesn't stop. He just smiles. That night, for the first time in months, he places the broken silver amulet into a small wooden box, seals it shut, and puts it in storage. He sleeps soundly and dreams of nothing. Life begins to flow again. For Eric, the weeks following the ritual pass like the slow bend of a river around a mountain, steady, quiet, and marked by small reflections. Though he's moved on to new projects, the house on Longyuan Avenue never quite leaves him. It hovers not as fear, but as a presence. A scar that no longer aches but never disappears. Kevin returns to managing multiple sites. He doesn't bring up the old job unless asked, and even then keeps his answers short. "It's behind us," he says once, when a young crew member casually asks why he won't touch another basement project. Some places just teach you not to dig deeper than you have to. Hugh John left construction altogether. Word has it he opened a noodle stall outside a local market. His bowls are hot, his hours are early, and he never works after sundown. As for Jung David, he called Eric a month later from a quieter town up north. Said he was helping restore an old pagoda near the mountains. His voice was calmer, but still carried a trace of fragility, like a man who had survived a storm, but left his sails in tatters. Eric keeps in touch with them all. Not often, just enough to know they're okay. One day, while sorting through a stack of old permits, Eric finds the original renovation file for the Longyuan Avenue house. Buried inside is a folded sheet of notebook paper, not typed, not official. Just handwritten shaky in faded blue ink, "Do not disturb. This house already has tenants." There's no name on the note, no date, only the script of someone who likely lived there once. Someone who tried in their own quiet way to warn others. Eric folds it back up and places it into his drawer. He doesn't discard it. Some messages, even after the fact, still need to be heard. That evening, he visits Baoji Pagoda to see Alan. They sit beneath the old pine tree by the side gate, where the wind rustles like distant voices through the needles. Alan offers him warm barley tea and a single almond cake. They eat in silence until Alan finally says, "You know, we never really saw her true face." Eric nods. "Maybe we weren't meant to." Alan glances toward the horizon. Some spirits don't want to be remembered for how they died, only that they were once alive. Eric looks down at his cup. "Do you think she's at peace now?" Alan doesn't hesitate. "I do, because she let herself be seen. That's all most ghosts need." Later, as Eric walks back to the city through the temple trail, he passes a group of children laughing as they chase a kite. Its green fabric flutters against the amber sky, long tail tracing spirals through the air. The scene feels impossibly light. For a moment, he imagines the boy running beside them, silent, no longer bruised. No longer afraid, just running. A child finally allowed to play. That night, Eric prepares for a new project. He opens the site plans, reviews safety codes, checks logistics. Then, as he does now with every job, he lights a single stick of incense before the first mark is made. He bows once to the space, even if it's empty, and he says aloud, "If you're here, I'm listening." The ritual takes seconds, but it changes everything. When he lays down that night, Eric dreams not of basements or broken glass, but of rooftops under starlight, and a quiet voice, whispering thank you. In the dream, he doesn't respond. He just smiles. The seasons begin to shift again. Spring presses against the edges of winter, and the trees on Longyuan Avenue start to bloom. The house, now painted a pale yellow, with blue shutters, stands quietly among the others, indistinguishable from its neighbors. No one passing by would know the kind of fear once sealed inside its basement. No one would guess that the laughter now echoing from its windows is layered over echoes far older, far colder. Eric drives by occasionally, not to check, not to worry, just to look. There's a child now living in the house, a girl maybe 6 or 7, who rides a scooter along the walkway and feeds breadcrumbs to pigeons. The young couple living there once waved at him by chance. They never asked if he had worked on the house. They didn't need to. The past didn't belong to them. And that was a good thing. One evening, Eric visits his mother again. Madame Zhao has grown quieter over the months. She doesn't ask about the house anymore. But when she sees the small lotus amulet still hanging from his keychain, she smiles and nods in approval. "Still protecting yourself?" she asks, half teasing. He chuckles, still remembering. They eat dinner together, and afterward, she brings out a wooden box from the back of her cabinet. Inside is a set of old family photographs, some faded, some warped from time. "I found this while cleaning," she says. "Look." Among the photos is one Eric has never seen before, a picture of his grandfather standing in front of a half-built house, smiling proudly beside a red banner. Behind him, barely visible, is a woman sitting in the shade. She holds a child on her lap. Her face is in shadow. "That's the first house we ever built," Madame Zhao says. Eric studies it carefully. "Did anyone ever live there?" His mother hesitates. "Only for a short time. Then the owners moved out, said the house made them sick. But your grandfather always said it was the foundation that was bad. The earth wasn't ready. Eric nods slowly. Or maybe it remembered something. She tilts her head. You still think like a storyteller? No, he says. I think like someone who's seen what stories can become when they're buried. Later that week, Eric receives a message from a friend in Yungang Prefecture. A small shrine near the village has recently been unearthed, buried under what used to be a schoolyard. The villagers want it restored. His friend asks if he's interested in leading the project. He doesn't answer immediately. That night he dreams of the boy again. But this time the boy is not standing in a basement or by a window. He's running through a field of white reeds laughing. The grandmother stands at a distance, hands folded, watching him. Her expression is calm, at peace. Eric watches them from afar in the dream. They don't notice him. They don't need to. In the morning he responds to the message, "Yes, I'll come. But only if we let the land speak first." Before setting out, he stops at Baoji Pagoda one last time. Alan is sweeping the courtyard, his movements slow and meditative. "You're leaving again?" Alan asks. Eric nods. "Just for a while." Alan sets the broom aside. "Be careful with old places. They're more patient than we are." "I know," Eric replies. They embrace briefly, and Alan slips something into his hand. A small bundle wrapped in red cloth, inside a single pressed flower. From her altar, Alan says, "The final one. It dried perfectly." Eric doesn't speak. He just places it carefully into the pocket of his travel bag. On the road out of the city, he passes by Longyuan Avenue one final time. The little girl is drawing with chalk on the sidewalk. Her parents sit nearby sipping tea. The cat lies curled up in the sun. Eric doesn't stop. But in the rearview mirror, he smiles. Some houses become homes again. Some spirits are finally remembered. And some stories, they stop needing to be told. The village shrine in Yungang Prefecture is nestled beneath a ridge of ancient stone, surrounded by trees that sway even when the air is still. The structure itself is barely standing, a wooden frame warped from time. Its tiled roof caved in along one side. But Eric doesn't see decay. He sees silence that holds stories. He sees soil that has tasted both blood and prayer. When he arrives, the local elders meet him at the base of the hill. They're polite, welcoming, but cautious. One of them, an old man with a cane carved from pear wood, hands him a rusted iron key. "This unlocks the gate," he says. "No one's used it in 30 years. Not since the storm." Eric looks toward the shrine. "Did someone die here?" The elder doesn't answer directly. "Only the forgotten remain. It's enough." That evening, before setting foot inside the shrine, Eric performs a ritual, just like Alan taught him. He lights incense boughs 3 times and speaks aloud into the dusk. "I don't come to take, I come to listen." The wind rises softly in response. Inside the shrine, the air is stale but dry. Dust cakes the stone floor and old prayer scrolls hang in tatters. In one corner, a child's toy drum sits half-buried under a broken plank. Eric doesn't touch it. He only marks its location in his notes. Over the next week, he works quietly alone at first. He clears debris by hand, avoids loud tools, and offers fruit to the altar every morning, even though it's been years since anyone placed incense there. The locals begin to trust him. They bring meals, share old stories. A woman named May recalls a fire that once threatened the hilltop but stopped just short of the shrine, as if the flames were turned back by an unseen hand. "People say the land here is stubborn," she says, "like it chooses who to reveal itself to." Eric nods. It always does. One evening while working late, he hears something behind the altar. A whisper. Faint. A child's voice singing a lullaby. Not haunting, not angry, just lonely. He doesn't move. He doesn't speak. He lets it finish. Then he leaves a small lantern burning through the night. By the second week, the restoration takes form. Beams are reinforced. The broken tiles are replaced with traditional clay. The toy drum is cleaned and placed respectfully on a shelf near the entrance. Eric adds one final touch, a plaque in carved wood, inscribed with a simple phrase in both Chinese and English. To those who waited in silence, this place remembers you. The villagers hold a small rededication ceremony. There are no reporters, no cameras. Just bowls of rice-warm tea and the rising scent of sandalwood. During the final prayer, a breeze flows gently through the open doors. It lifts the corner of a forgotten prayer slip and carries it outside, where it spirals once before resting at the base of the hill. Eric watches it settle. That night he dreams of the house again. But this time it's empty. Clean. A fresh coat of paint covers the basement walls. The bagua mirror is whole. No blood. No shadows. Just a home waiting. In the center of the room, a lantern glows softly. And beside it, a woman sits. She doesn't speak, but she smiles. Eric wakes with his heart full. The next morning, he writes a letter to Alan. The wind here doesn't feel like warning. It feels like memory. I think this place just wanted someone to say its name again. Alan replies simply, "You said it, and you listened. That's all the old ones ever wanted." On his last day in the village, Eric hikes to a nearby overlook and watches the valley stretch below him. The river glistens. The shrine's rooftop now glows amber in the setting sun. He doesn't take a photo. He just closes his eyes and breathes. The ghosts, wherever they are, have learned that they are no longer alone. Back in the city, life resumes its rhythm. Eric returns to his apartment where the air smells of tea leaves and sandalwood. Nothing stirs in the corners, no shadows, no chills. He sets his bag down and places the red-wrapped flower Alan gave him on his windowsill. The petals are dry now, delicate, but they haven't faded. Somehow they still hold their shape. He sits at his desk, opens his notebook, and begins writing. Not a report, not a contract. Just words, reflections. The kinds of things no one ever asks about. But everyone carries the way a stair creaks before something speaks. The scent of incense burned. Too late at night. The feeling that someone is watching, not to harm, but to be noticed. He titles the page, "Some houses were never empty." Outside, the street is alive with color and noise. Children run past his window, chasing a red balloon that bobs like a memory. A motorbike hums in the distance. Neighbors argue cheerfully over fruit prices at the corner stall. Normal, but Eric doesn't forget. He steps outside and walks to the nearby park, where the city trees reach higher than they seem capable of. There, on a shaded bench, sits the neighbor from Long Yuan Avenue, the same elderly woman who once warned him not to enter. She's feeding birds from a paper bag. He approaches respectfully. She glances up, smiling. "You didn't run away," she says. "I couldn't," he replies. She nods as if this is the only answer that ever made sense. Then she adds, "It's quiet there now." "I know." A long silence passes, the kind that isn't awkward, just full. Finally, she says, "There are other houses." "I know that too. You'll go?" He smiles. "When I'm called." She reaches into her bag and hands him a folded square of paper. On it, pressed between glassine sheets, is a single black sesame seed. For warding, she says. But not to keep them out, to let the right ones in. Eric pockets it gently. As he walks back, his phone buzzes. A message from a contact in Guangyuan's small ancestral hall discovered during road expansion. "Would you be willing to consult?" He doesn't reply immediately. He looks up at the sky. A single cloud drifts above the rooftops, its shape vaguely resembling a house. A rooftop. A flame. A hand. Everything he's seen has made him cautious, but not afraid. He responds, yes. But I won't come alone. That evening, he meets Alan for dinner. They talk over steaming noodles and cold tofu, and share updates from pagoda renovations and mundane temple politics. Then Alan leans in slightly. You still carry the amulet. Eric lifts it from under his shirt, always. But not because you're afraid. Eric shakes his head. Because I remember. Alan smiles. Then you're ready for whatever comes next. They toast with tea. Back home, Eric opens his drawer of artifacts. Inside the broken silver amulet, the red threaded ring, the cracked compass, the sesame seed, and a stone from the shrine path in Yungang. None of them are magical, but all of them matter. He places them in a small wooden box and writes on the lid for the next one who listens. Then he slides the box under his bed, not to hide it, but to keep it close. That night, as the city winds down and the lights dim across balconies and storefronts, Eric stands by his window one last time. He lights a stick of incense and speaks aloud. To the grandmother, to the boy, to the others whose names are lost. I saw you, I heard you, and I will not forget. The wind responds, not strong, not cold, just present. And enough. A month passes, then another. The house on Longyuan Avenue fades from conversation, from rumor, from memory, except in Eric's mind, where it lives not as a place of terror, but as a turning point. He visits it only once more, walking by at dusk as lanterns flicker to life in the neighboring courtyards. A child's laughter rings out from behind the gate. A ball bounces into view. A dog yelps in excitement. Eric doesn't slow his step. He doesn't need to look inside. He already knows. The house is no longer listening. It's sleeping. He continues on past streets he once feared to walk alone. Past storefronts selling herbs and charms. Past the alley where the air used to hang heavy with dread. All of it transformed, softened, ordinary. Later that night, he sifts through old field notes. The kind he used to keep purely for logistics beam measurements, pipe routes, electrical loads. But between the lines of blueprints and budgets are now scribbled thoughts like, this wall breathes wrong. There is too much quiet here. Before breaking the floor, ask who last walked across it. He creates a new folder on his desk. It's not labeled supernatural or cursed sites, just one word, simple and unassuming echoes. Inside, he places a copy of the story he wrote, the one Alan holds at the pagoda. He's not sure why. Maybe so it's closer to his everyday life. Maybe so he never forgets to look for what isn't shown on blueprints. The next morning, a call comes through from a heritage conservator. There's a site west of Xi'an, the woman says. Old burial marker uncovered during roadwork. Locals say the land resists construction. Would you consult? Eric closes his eyes for a moment, then opens them. I'll come, he says. But I'll need time. I don't rush places like that. The woman chuckles softly. We were told you wouldn't. As he prepares to leave, he revisits the wooden box under his bed, the one filled with pieces of the past. The compass, the red thread, the pressed flower. He adds one more item, a thumb-sized bell he found outside the Yungang shrine. It doesn't ring anymore, but the metal is warm to the touch, as if it remembers being held by someone who once believed it could protect them. He places the box gently back under the bed and whispers, "Watch over the quiet ones." On his way to the station, he texts Kevin, heading out again. "Looks like another one of those places." Kevin replies almost instantly, "Don't go alone. Call if you need me." Eric smiles. He boards the train just as the sky begins to rain soft, steady like a blessing. Out the window, fields blur into mist. Trees sway past like slow-moving memories. Somewhere not far from here, another place waits. A roof that's too low. A room that's too cold. A name that was never spoken out loud. But this time Eric will be ready. He carries no weapon, no relic, only a notebook, and the promise that whatever speaks from the shadows, he will listen. Because some stories begin in screams, and some begin in silence. The site west of Xi'an isn't much to look at, just a slope of earth torn open by recent construction, its exposed layers revealing brick fragments and dark stone beneath the loam. The road crew had stopped working after 3 workers fell ill on consecutive days. Not seriously, but strangely. A fever here, a fall there. One of them refused to return, saying something had whispered to him from inside the open trench. Eric arrives quietly without fanfare, carrying only a field bag, a notebook, and the lotus-engraved amulet around his neck. The air is dry. The wind moves with the scent of old roots. A local guide shows him the location. "The burial stone is there," he says, pointing to a slab leaning awkwardly against an excavator. "We tried to move it. It wouldn't budge." Eric approaches and places his hand gently on the surface. The stone is cold, but not lifeless. It hums. Not audibly, but like the faint memory of vibration. He kneels and begins his ritual. 3 sticks of incense, a bow, and then the words, "If you were once forgotten, I am here to remember." There's no response. But the wind stills. That night, Eric sets up a small tent nearby. He chooses not to stay in the workers' housing. Instead, he builds a temporary altar, just stones, a candle, a bowl of water, and he waits. At 2:14 a.m., something shifts. The candle flickers in a way that defies the breeze. He looks up to find a woman standing at the edge of the trees. She is not fully formed, more suggestion than flesh. Her robes hang low, trailing dust, and her hands cradle a long bundle wrapped in cloth. A child. Eric doesn't move. He only lowers his head. "I see you," he says softly. She doesn't approach, doesn't speak. But in the silence, he feels her grief. A wave, not of anger, but of sorrow, so deep it seems older than the hills. Eric gestures to the altar. "You're remembered. This land can carry your name again." The figure turns slowly and fades into the tree line. The candle burns steady for the rest of the night. In the morning, the workers return. No one falls. No one hears voices. The stone slab shifts easily when Eric and 2 others try again. As they lift it, they find a carved name on the underside, worn but still legible. A woman's name flanked by 2 smaller characters for beloved child. Eric documents it carefully and sends the report to the local heritage office. They agree to fund a full recovery. The site is sealed off for respectful excavation. Before he leaves, Eric writes the name in his notebook. No one should be buried without someone to speak their name. He sends a message to Alan. She came with sorrow, not rage, just wanted someone to say it aloud. Alan replies, "The ones who scream want justice. The ones who weep want memory." On the train ride home, Eric stares out the window as the landscape scrolls past hills, rivers, ghosted villages half lost to time. He imagines them all full again of laughter, of footsteps, of breath. He clutches the lotus amulet, not for protection, for connection. That night he stops by Baoji Pagoda. Alan meets him with tea and silence. Together they sit in the courtyard. "You've seen her?" Alan asks. Eric nods. "I didn't know her name until I read the stone. And now she has a place. That's enough." Alan considers this. Do you ever wonder how many stories we walk past without knowing every day? Eric answers. But maybe it's not about knowing them all, just hearing the one that needs you most. As they part, Alan says, "You should write again." "I am," Eric says. "But it's not a story. It's a record." Same thing, Alan smiles. "If you're doing it right." At home, Eric sits by his window, with the city unfolding around him. Lanterns hang from balconies. A child sings to herself in the apartment below. He writes the date at the top of a new page and adds one line: "The ones who are seen need not." "Stay behind." Then he closes the notebook. He's not finished. But for tonight, the echoes can rest. In the soft hush of early dawn, when the streets still sleep and the incense smoke rises thinly above quiet windowsills, Zhao Eric sits in stillness. The world is not loud here. It doesn't need to be. There are no footsteps behind him, no shadows waiting in corners. Only breath and memory and a city beginning to stretch. He no longer fears what lies beneath floors or behind doors, because he's learned that not all hauntings come with screams. Some arrive with silence, with forgotten names, with the echo of someone who once lived and waited far too long to be remembered. There are places still out there, unfinished houses, sealed cellars, shrines crumbling in remote hills, each holding its own ache, each waiting for someone who will kneel, light a candle, and ask, "Who were you?" And perhaps that is what matters most. Not the rituals, not the relics, but the moment someone listens. Eric gathers his notebook, tucks away the lotus amulet, and steps into the morning light. Behind him, the incense has burned down to ash. Ahead of him, new roads await, unwritten, unnamed. But wherever he goes, he will carry them with him, not as burdens, but as stories. The ones who wept, the ones who watched, the ones who whispered. Now, they rest. And those who listen like you, sitting quietly now in your own dim room, carry their memory forward. So if tonight or some other night, the wind brushes your shoulder or the shadows feel too thick to be empty, don't be afraid. Not every spirit wishes to harm. Some are just waiting to be seen, to be heard, to be remembered. The horror stories of the East never truly end.
That was their story. Maybe you believe it, maybe you don't. But tonight, when the lights go out, just remember, not every silence means you're alone. New true horror stories every week. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have a story of your own, send it to us. You're not the only one who's seen things.